I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we're taking a look at an important book, and it's called Whooa-man by Dean Allen. It is a book that sheds light on the often overlooked challenges of young military personnel marrying too early. Drawing from his own personal experiences, the author provides an insightful exploration into the complexities of early marriage in the military context. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank our team at Prime 7 Media for helping us put him in the spotlight today. And we ask viewers like you to support authors like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing his wonderful book. The links are below this interview. Dean, great to see you here today on Spotlight.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for your time. This is awesome.
It's great to have you on. This is an important book. Getting married too early, I didn't realize until I read your book, was a plight of many members of the military. And why don't you give the folks at home the big picture of what your book is about and why you think this is an important message?
Well, growing up, being in the military as a leader, we started counseling soldiers. We started, of course, we were a leader, so we teach soldiers how to train and how to fight. Well, in that, we also counsel. And through my experiences, we found out that a lot of these soldiers would join the military and get married immediately because they wanted someone there, or they wanted, support, or, something.
Somebody to write home to, somebody to care about, they needed a connection. Yeah.
Exactly. And so what happened is they'd get married early, then they would deploy. Well, they come back and there's no support there. There's no support for the family. There's no support. And all of a sudden that soldier comes home and they have nothing. They got a broken home. Their wife is gone or husband's gone. And I just saw a lot of that going through the military. And over 80% of military marriages don't last.
Yeah. Wow.
Just because of all the deployments. And so we're just trying to find a better way to kind of like pump the brakes, whoa, man, like watch out. Here's some ideas. I'm not a licensed therapist, but I've been through a lot of different deployments and a lot of soldiers that I dealt with. So I just took my experiences from that and says, hey, why don't we make a guidebook or kind of a handbook and say, hey, this is what we can do, show awareness, because there isn't any out there right now.
Exactly. It's very interesting because you can understand the allure and the appeal of wanting to get married before you deploy. Like we said before, somebody to write home to, somebody to come home to, somebody to build a life with on a personal level that you might not be getting, obviously, in the military other than a friendship. But like you said, it's a very strenuous thing to be married to somebody who gets deployed often. It's also even harder if the couple is young, emotionally immature, and don't have the foundation of a solid relationship before that deployment takes place. So tell me, what in your opinion are maybe the top 3 things a person can do if they feel like they want to get married, but they perhaps are too young? What advice would you give them?
Open communication. That's probably my most important thing, is just have open communication. Understand each other's point of view and goal, mindset. Also empathy, have empathy. And I mean, just a quick example, my wife and I, we got, I was already waiting for orders to go to Germany for OIF-1. And I met my wife and, I told her, I said, look, honey, I'm ready I'm waiting for my orders to go active Army and I will deploy. And we sat there and we talked about it. And she says, okay, I want to do this. And we got together and we've been together 21 years.
Right.
And
what was different between your experiences and some of the other experiences you see?
It could be immaturity. I think a lot of that is immaturity, because soldiers, when they move, like a single soldier would go to a unit, they'd go to the barracks. So they would be in a single room or a double room, and that's their life. They'd go to work, then they'd go back to the barracks and they'd be by themselves. And they would see their friends out, in homes, having families. And I think that's what they want. They want to connect with someone instead of just being in the barracks. They wanted to connect with someone, love, a likeness or something. They just want to connect. And I think for deployments, that's what they did. They just said, I want to connect with someone. And they went out and found someone, as soon as possible and got married, and a lot of it didn't work.
Yeah. And there's a lot of heartache and expense. Like you said, to
Mhm.
come home and have a broken home is awful. To have children that now are, separated from one parent or the other. It's a
Yeah.
cascade of different problems that happen when people get divorced, unfortunately, but that's the sad reality of it. Are you still in the military, and was your wife able to travel with you when you were in the military? You mentioned a deployment to Germany.
So when I got to Germany, my wife was actually pregnant at the time.
Hmm.
And so I went to Germany. I was there probably a month, maybe. And I flew back to see my daughter born. And she was born at 25 weeks. So she was about as big as my hand. And I was home
Wow.
probably a week. Then I left. Then I deployed. So I was gone 15 months, came home, and my daughter was 16 months old. And I moved them to Germany. And I was there. We're there probably about 7, 8 months. And I deployed again.
Hmm.
Came back, then moved to North Carolina, Fort Bragg, and I was there maybe 6 months, deployed again for another 15 months. Then moved to Colorado Springs, Fort Carson, and I was there 8 months, deployed again, came back. I was probably there a year. Then I went to Korea for a year and came back. So all those areas she went, but the deployment she did not. So when I got out in 13, active Army in 13, we've been together right at 11 years, and I saw my family 4 years.
Yeah. Amazing.
And so I chose to get out, and I went to reserves to finish out my 21 years.
Yeah. So that's quite a journey. And like you said, out of those 11 years of being married, you felt like you were only really together for 4 of them?
About, yeah.
Yeah. Would you do it again? I mean, we salute you for your service, and thank God for people like you who are willing to make the sacrifices needed to defend our nation. I don't think you can overestimate the contribution that people like you, and you in particular, have made. Would you do it again, though, looking back on it all?
First of all, thank you very much for that. Yes, I would. I would do it again. I I enjoyed it. There's a lot of good times, a lot of bad times over there. I learned a lot. Learned a lot who I was, learned who I am. Learned how to be a better leader. PTSD's involved. I have some other issues, but through the faith and everything, no, I'm just make it better.
Wonderful, wonderful. And what message do you hope people take away from your book?
Just keep that awareness. Understand that everyone's going to be a little different, and especially with the military, just kind of step back and think about it. Have that open communication, and if it's love, then
Yeah.
then let it flourish.
Right, right. Yeah, if two people are meant to be together, they can wait, a year, 2, 3, perhaps before they get married. There doesn't have to be a rush. Like I said, there's a lot of allure there. There's a romance of it. He's going away and she's staying behind, and you're desperate
Exactly.
in love. I mean, I was 22, 23, 24 years old once, and I understand those passions.
Yeah.
But now at considerably older than that, I understand the realities of it too, is that, love doesn't necessarily conquer all. And as my mom used to say, love goes out the window when hunger comes in the door. So, if something's
I agree.
missing, the
Mhm.
best of relationships can fall apart. So make sure you're on a concrete foundation. What was it like for you writing the book? Did it just effortlessly flow, or did it take some research and time? Tell us about that.
So a buddy of mine, we're sitting around just talking one afternoon, and he was going through a really nasty divorce. And this book brought up, it's like, hey, let's do Whooa-man. That sounds pretty cool. Well, like pump the brakes, Whooa-man. I was like, okay. And we just kind of sat on it for a while, and nothing really came to fruition. And I was going through I couldn't find a really good therapist to help me with the PTSD, all the issues I was having. And So in around 14, 15, I just wrote the book out of almost anger. I was upset. I was mad. I think I was mad because I was gone from my family. I wasn't mad at my wife. I wasn't mad at my daughter or the army. I was just mad because I was gone. And I missed all that time. And I would see all these kids running around. So, I missed that. I missed that. And I was really upset that I missed all that. And so I wrote the book without my wife. I just wrote it. And I published it in 2016. And probably a couple months ago, I sat, my wife and I were talking, and I gave her the book and I says, rewrite it, just redo it. And so we sat, and she spent a month, and that was good therapy. We sat and we went through the whole book, and there's some nasty parts, there's some really bad parts in the book, and she made it less crass, because I made it very aggressive and crassful, and she took it and she wrote it beautifully, and she made it a lot better. Wonderful. So it's getting ready to come out again. If you want to call it version 2, it's getting ready to come out again.
Great. Well, it was a great collaboration. Important for your wife to work on that with you as well, because your actions obviously affected her as well. So she could give you some perspective there too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, wonderful. The name of the book is called Whooa-man by Dean Allen. It is a book that sheds light on the often overlooked challenges of young military personnel who get hitched too early. That is a warning. Okay. Dean, thanks so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
I appreciate it, sir, as well. And to the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.